Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of DC's Legends of Tomorrow. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, the team wakes up, and I love like the interaction between Zari and Nate, and he's like, oh wow, she's like, oh yeah, you caught me with no makeup, but it's like, oh right, I remind you of your Zari. He's like, yeah, and she's like, oh, so maybe that explains. He's like, it's a natural reaction. She's like, sure thing, Steel. And it's like, oh, come on. Yes, it's the natural morning plus you look like his girlfriend. I'm sure it's a combination of the two. But it's like, yeah, everyone's woken up early, and it's because Mick has found Kayla, the alien that, granted, they don't know her name at the time, but it's like, yeah, she's the alien that will lead us to Sarah. He's kind of like in charge of everything. It's like, oh, like he was able to, it's like, oh, redacted this and that and omitted and redacted. It's like, she's like, whoa, when'd you learn such big words? He's like, I always knew those words because he's a man of few words and a lot of grunts. So like once he starts speaking a certain way, even Zari's like starts speaking French at him. He's like, what? You know, because it's like, no, it's like, I know some stuff. I'm not the smartest dude, but I'm not a complete and utter idiot, despite how I might present myself sometimes. Because even Ava being like, oh my god, you're so great, Rory, for figuring it out. Because he's thanking her for, like, you know, it's like, thanks to you, I was able to kind of get... Because Mick has always been this way, but he's been especially bad now that, like, Sarah was going. Because I think Sarah guided him in the right direction. Yeah, he was always kind of slouchy at his job, yeah, but at least I think it probably got worse and worse the more OGs left the team. And now, like, with Sarah not being there, like, Sarah's the guiding force. She's the glue that's held this team together, for such a long time. And she's always been there guiding... like their true north, and without her around, Mick was kind of a little lost. But now it's like Ava kind of set him back on the path. It's like, right, we're gonna do what we can to save Sarah. He inputs the coordinates. They go because it turns out like some point in 2044, like files that were kind of sealed away by like the KGB were like no longer redacted. So we found out about the alien crashing there in the 60s. So they plan on stealing the convoy vehicle that has the alien ship on it. Mick goes straight to it, and then shots come their way, and then Spooner just immediately opens fire. It's like, her and Mick actually make a really good team because they're both very hot-headed. Like, she's very kind of like, oh, you want to shoot at me? And then shoots back. Even later on, it's like, why is there so much gunfire? It's like, they started it first. So hijacking the car and everything, it's like, huh. And it's like, maybe I shouldn't have let Mick run this whole operation. But Nate was like, honestly, it's no messier than any other operation we've ended up doing. So they luckily steal the vehicle. Sadly, it turns out they don't have an alien. What they have is a nuclear warhead because they're smack dab in the middle of the Cuban Missile Crisis. And it's like, crap, we just stole this weapon. So what are we going to do? It's like, well, we can still look for the spaceship. So now they have to like decide how they're going to handle this because they're potentially about to jumpstart World War III doing what they've done. So Mick and Spooner were basically trying to find a way to put the warhead back to where it was. At the same time, Nate and Zari are going to Washington D.C. to kind of smooth things over, while Behrad and Ava go try to find the alien. Which I love. Behrad was like, right, he was just waking up from his high, and he was like, oh, I actually don't want to go, but it's like Ava drags him along. Obviously, dealing with these type of operations isn't his cup of tea, and Ava's pretending to be an alien scientist to get them in, because Miko's like, oh, we can get in there, like break in, but it's like, no. She's like, we'll find a way, a non-forceful way in. We will just kind of walk in, because she doesn't want to leave things to Mick, because by leaving things to Mick, they're in their current circuit situation, so, right. And so Ava told them no firing, no gunshot. So it's like, okay, we roll up to this checkpoint, and they kind of have to hand the weapon over. Spooner was like, oh, no, we'll hand it to her. It's like, okay, we kind of have no choice now, so we're handing the weapon over. And obviously, like, she starts having a headache, and he was like, oh, it must be that time. She's like, oh, yeah, haha, fun. He's like, no, my daughter has to, essentially, it's like around this time, the same symptoms and stuff like that. And she's like, oh, that's actually sweet that you're kind of looking out for me. No, it's not my period, it's the alien thing, so... For her, she was able to kind of, like, her powers are growing. Once again, I'm curious to find out whether, like, not unless it's a meta-human ability, but it's something, like, because she thinks, like, the aliens implanted something in her. I think, in actuality, we're going to find out, like, my thought was, like, they bestowed something upon her, but maybe I'm also thinking, I think that's going to be the irony behind it. She's so anti-alien, I think she's going to find out that she's actually an alien, whether it's an alien that took on this form and doesn't remember that. I mean, as we could tell, as we've seen, they can take on human forms like Gary, so you don't know who's an alien, who isn't. Granted, the other ones don't have the technology to do that, but still, it could be that she's stuck in his human form. Could be a TARDIS situation of like, you could shapeshift, but you're kind of stuck in this. I mean, to be fair, I was about to say, the better description would have been Charlie, you idiot. We already had a shapeshifter who got stuck looking a certain way. I'm so stupid. It's like, I went for the Doctor Who reference when like there's already someone being stuck in a particular form standing right there in front of me, and I just didn't think about it. Yeah, so Charlie. Could be kind of a similar circumstance, or at the very least, maybe she's just an alien that looks very human. I don't know. Because, like, once again, Gideon was never able to find anything inside of her, like a device, so her powers are coming from something or somewhere. Who knows? The fact is she can understand the aliens and read their, languages, too. Like, there's a lot to it, so... but she talks about the fact that her power is expanding, because at the same time, Ava is, pretending to cut open the alien. Well, not pretending, she actually does a little bit, which Barry Robb was like, I'm not good with blood, and he about passes out, goes out in the hallway to throw up, and then, like, oh, the dude thinks he's, Che, and it's like, no, wait, you thought I was, no, wait, if you're not Che, then who are you? He's like, I'm Jay, his cousin. And if Fidel's welcoming him with open arms, oh, I'm so glad you're here and stuff like that. Which you also gotta love the fact is that, like, he's trying to eat some, like, weed candies as he's, like, trying to, like, stay calm under the circumstances. And Fidel, it's like, oh boy. So now Fidel is getting high. Like, you're getting high with Fidel Castro. You're getting Fidel Castro high, bro. This is crazy. At the same time, I love the whole thing of him, like, he's like, let me sing a song. It's like, yeah, if you didn't sing me a song, I would kill you. And then he bursts out laughing, ha ha ha, and then, like, Vera's like, ha 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 ha, and then he kind of sings a song about peace trying, because Fidel's under the impression that that creature, that mutant, he's thinking that it was something sent by the CIA to kill him, so that's why he's wanting to strike against the U.S., whereas the U.S. at the same time ends up finding out, wait, like, there's this steel man that got caught on picture, so Nate, granted he was steeled up so they didn't notice him, which obviously the dude one of the generals talks about, like, the project, which we already know because that's the project his, like, Nate's grandfather was a part of and everything, so it's like, oh, right, I thought it was so neat that they did bring it up considering the time frame and everything. It's like, right, we had this whole steel man project, so that means, like, yeah, it was kind of done, so one of our experiments must have gotten escaped and went rogue. And even like John F. Kennedy, Jack, is like, why wasn't I aware of it? And I think, like he was saying, like, the previous president didn't think Jack needed to know about such a thing. So because this particular general, and I think a lot of people underestimated John F. Kennedy a lot, because they were just thinking, like, oh, you're kind of like, you're one of the eggheads, like, leave this to the military guys type of situation, because basically John gathered up a group of different people from, like, kind of a group of eggheads from that kind of talked this out to figure it out, because that's what Nate was kind of hoping for, that Jack was a reasonable enough person that, like, okay, we can talk this through, talk him out of, like, things escalating and this becoming a World War III situation. So as they're handling things, Nate kind of makes a football analogy to, like, a tie situation of, like, yeah, neither defense is kind of wavering, and he was kind of saying, like, that's the only, like, win-win situation under the circumstance, is kind of like this stalemate, because it's like, if one leans the other way, like, kind of saying, like, stay on kind of, like, the defense is kind of not giving way, because it's like, if it does, this could be a situation where you can. Luckily, Nate was able to kind of talk him out of it, but then slowly but surely, like, other things started creeping up and going wrong. Fidel, the alien attacks Fidel, and it's like, damn, and, luckily, Barry was able to protect him, but it's like, for him, it's like, nope, it's solidified, they're trying to kill me, so he's arming up, and then Che calls him, and it's like, oh, there's someone here, so Barry has to run for it, and it's like, you tell the CIA that mutant thing's not going to kill me, so that sucks. That's after the fact is that the alien escaped from Ava and even tried to hurt her and kill her as it was trying to make its escape. So luckily, with Spooner, they were able to track it down, and together her and Rory ended up grabbing Ava and taking her back to the ship. But because of this, it's all like everything's falling apart, so now it's a situation where Ava's kind of blaming Rory for everything, because it's like, for her, it's like, well, you need to go kill that alien, because if the alien's dead, then maybe we can convince Fidel that, like, this isn't the FBI, I mean, this isn't the CIA, that this isn't the US doing this. But it's like, no, if we kill it, that's going to be our last ditch, that's our last effort to find Sarah. But for her, it's like, I have to protect history, and basically you doing what you're doing is kind of messing things up. And for her, it was a moment where she was basically saying, like, maybe you shouldn't be trying to, like, he's like, maybe you shouldn't have, like, cleaned me up and stuff like that. And she's like, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I just need you to be the killer and bad guy that you kind of were. Like, the killer and the muscle, like, not be the brains. It's like, right. The fact of the matter is, then I'll go be it. That's, you know, that is my purpose and everything. And I think that is kind of the thing. Like, without Sarah around, he's kind of felt like he's lost his purpose. And even Spooner's trying to make him feel better. It's like, no, Ava shouldn't say what she said. And he's like, no, I don't care. And it's like, oh, so you're just going to drink yourself back to your position? He was like, yeah. You know, it's like he was backpedaling, because he was making strides forward, because this is the best we've seen. This is Mick at his best we've seen. He, like I said, he's pulled his weight before, but I think, like I said, with every situation that's come about that the Legends have had to face where they've lost people, especially the OGs, like, you know, it's kind of sent him spiraling a little bit more, like I said. But without Sarah being that true north, her in particular, like, she's the core to that team. She's the heart of the team, and without her leading the charge, pointing in the right direction, like, she knows how to handle, like, that's what makes her so fantastic. She's able to rein in the Legends. Yeah, they still have their bumpy roads, but she handles them like no one else can. So, but obviously they end up talking to Kayla's looking at the nuclear weapon, thinking like she's sinking into his ship, and then Mick confronts her, but Spooner's translating, like, because she can understand them, they just can't understand, well, Spooner can obviously understand her, but Mick can't understand her. But it's like, right, I'll take you to our ship. But it's like, Kayla wants her ship. It's like, fine, I'll take you to your ship, but you just got to come with us. So things got to work out on that front. At the same time, the general is convincing Jack more and more to, like, take us closer and closer to, like, DEFCON. And obviously Zari was able to buy enough time to basically make it, it's like, oh, she's typing in everything and making it seem like, oh, she's typing every word that Jack is saying, but in actuality she was kind of telling everyone to kind of stand down. And it's like, because of that, they can't rally enough forces. And when the missile finally does get launched by Castro, who's saying that basically history will, I forgot what the word he was saying, but basically, essentially, history will kind of understand and kind of forgive him for doing what he's doing. Because even his people are like, no, if you do this, sir, like, you're dooming us, you're killing us all, because we are going to start World War III. And he was like, it's a necessary thing, because the whole general wanted to, like, well, essentially strike at Russia, because it's like, yeah, they might want us to strike at Cuba, and but let's strike at Russia, but we strike at Russia, they're going to strike back. And that was the whole point Nate was trying to get across. But, what was it called again? Was it the nuclear football? Is that what it's called? I'm forgetting the actual name for it. But obviously the general brings that out, and Jack is still kind of reluctant not to go down that route. But the general's pointing out a gun, and then, like, you know, Nate reveals himself as a steel man, and blocks the bullet. And it's like, okay, so, you know, for him, it's like, I'm not here to, do anything. I'm here to protect the world, trying to do the right thing. And so the general's threatening Zari, but he's like, yeah, we don't need you anymore. And so everyone, the Harvard guys and the military guys, everyone's huddled up and be like, and it turns into a legit football game. It's like, you remember that? All right, ready? Let's go. And then it legit turns into a football game. Luckily, Zari is able to kind of give them helping powers. Because I completely forgot that the other Zari split the talisman between them. I completely forgot about that. I was like, right, I'm such an idiot for forgetting that. But in that moment, luckily, Nate coming through with the save, grabbing it. So, but Jack has made a decision, like, because Nate convinced him, like, even if we're going to die, like, we would be screwing over the rest of the world, because if we strike now, basically we're dead, but the rest of the world's going to have to suffer the ramifications of it. And so Jack listened. He was like, right, you're right. We're not going to drag the rest of the world down. If we die here, then so be it. But the general kept being like, no, this is your chance to do it. And obviously it's like, right, so this is their moment. But, you know, Nate's like, at the very least, we gave it a college try, and him and Zari were holding hands. I was almost hoping on some level Zari would be like, well, I can always bring the other Zari out in this moment, but No. And it's like, all right, we're down to the wire. The general's outside shooting at it as it's coming down. I was like, how are you guys going to avoid this? I was like, is a wave rider going to come in the last second and stop it? And no, it turns out Mick removed all of the nuclear material, so it ended up just being a shell of a weapon. Like, there's no, it doesn't explode, it doesn't go off. It was enough to land and kill that general. I was like, oh. It's like, oh, they're alive and everything. Yeah, everything worked out. But what I thought was, it was an interesting resolution all around. Because Mick had already made up his mind about what he was going to do. So as he was coming back, it's like, she's like, should we really be so close to the nuclear material? Is that safe? And he's like, probably not. Opens a portal and pushes her out. And I love Kayla being beside, just looking almost like, and just shrugs her shoulders. So it's like, right. Mick is like, well, the fact of the matter is, I'm going to be the one to go after Sarah because you need to stay here. Because as you said, your job is to protect the timeline. Because she knows how to lead the team and knows how to, protect it. Because for Mick is once again like, what's his purpose? But it's like, my purpose is this. I'm going to retrieve Sarah. I'm going to retrieve the captain. The fact is, this is what I do. This is my job. I mean, to be fair, it kind of goes in his purview anyway. Because what's his whole thing about stealing anyway? So it's like, right, got to technically steal Sarah back to. Not the same thing, but it still works in his purview. And so for him, it's like he was kind of looking for a purpose, and this is it. Because I think for him, it's like considering everything else, it's like, well, I'm not really useful to the team any other means, so I'm gonna take the wave rider, go with this alien, the quote unquote fighting ship, and then we'll find Sarah in the process. So he doesn't trust the alien, but that's why he wants to be the one that goes along. But Ava's like, no, I trust you to do this. So she leaves on her own without him having to trick her and push her out. Nate and Zari returns, and it's like, okay, cool. So, as she's putting her hair down, he looks at her. She's like, right, I'm reminding you of your old Zari. He's like, no. He's like, in the beginning, like, there was a lot of hurt and pain from the fact is, right, it's not his Zari anymore. But for him, it's like, no, it was kind of like that in the beginning, but now I don't see her. I see you for being you. So she sees this Zari. So I think that's kind of a nice progression for her story to kind of showcase for him. It's like, yeah, it's still there, but it's also like, right, I recognize you're not my Zari, but you're your own person, and I need to start looking at you as your own person, seeing you for you and not for the Zari that I no longer have. So obviously it's like her being with Constantine and everything. So that would have, it's been there since the beginning of the season, but still, I think it was a nice touch to make them kind of like him kind of things to kind of be clearer on that front. I think showing that he is kind of okay with everything now. So everyone shows up and it's like, wait, okay, how do we resolve everything? It's like, Nate's like, well, a football analogy. And Berat is like, oh yeah, with like, drugs. And it's like, oh. And she's like, that's kind of on point, like, that's very befitting considering how both of you handle these situations. It's very you how each of you handle this. So Spooner's more upset because it's like, damn, like, how do we hunt aliens? It's like, well, where are we going to go? Well, I guess we can always crash at, Constantine's. Oh, he's going to be so happy about that. Like, yeah, it's like, oh, all of us living under the same roof. I love that thought, though. It kind of reminds me of, like, that sitcom they were stuck in the end of season 5. It kind of reminded me of that a little bit. Like, it'd be kind of like, oh, man, dude, it'd be interesting. This would be a really interesting point because they've had that episode before where there's been like a very like mockumentary, like it was like wasn't it like technically the first episode of season 5 where it's like, oh, the legends got announced to the world as heroes and stuff like that. Obviously they undid it at the end of the episode, but it was kind of that. This would be kind of like a very like, oh, Big Brother, very like real world type of situation. I think that'd be kind of neat to have an episode like that kind of maybe not. I don't know if they'll lean into that. I call the preview of next episode. We're going to be focusing on Astra's circumstances. I think it's kind of supposed to be like what she's been up to the past 2 episodes because she hasn't partaken in this. She's kind of been living her life. It's like, I'm not going to get dragged into your guys' shenanigans. Eventually you will. We'll see what those circumstances are, but like we'll get to that soon enough. So I thought that was fascinating. How that but it's like, yeah, let's go kick it with Constantine. Like, I hope it becomes something like that, like them all living under the roof and what that looks like. I hope we get like a whole episode dedicated to that. But nevertheless, also I love like Behrad offering Spooner his like candies and being like, and then Ava takes him and is like, no one wants your drugs, and he's just kind of like, oh, and just they kind of all walk away. I love it. At the same time, Mick and Kayla, he can't understand her, but it's like, don't touch my stuff. And then she puts on a ring, and we see her in her human form. I'm like, yes! I guess her species in general, they have her and Gary, like their species have the technology to shapeshift in general. I guess it's meant to be like, oh, this way we blend into whatever place we end up. Because I was wondering if she'd end up having to wear Gary's glasses to look like Gary, but it's like, no, she comes with her own tech to be human. And it's like, oh, I'm just wondering if you got anything heavier. And then, like, starts drinking the beer in front of Mick, and it's like, she's like, this is gonna be a nice long trip, and he's smitten. I'm like, yo, which is gonna be interesting considering that's Gary's fiance and what that would turn into, because Gary's not too happy about the engagement, but also if her and Mick hit it off, that'd be an interesting thing, especially explaining to your daughter, like, right, this is my alien girlfriend. She's eaten people before. It's like, well, we have to accept Gary because Gary's eaten people too. We've seen it more recently, obviously last episode. But I need to look up that actress's name. I feel like I know her from something else. The most recent thing I saw her in, she was in two-ish episodes of Debris. But even that, it's like I feel like I know her for something. So I have to look that actress up later on to see what I know her from. But I can't wait for those shenanigans, especially as they're looking more so for Sarah. But then all right, Gary's with Sarah, and what that conversation is going to be like when Kayla and him meet. It's going to be fascinating. But also making her being on a ship alone. Gideon kind of watching everything. I'm just so curious to see how this all plays out. Sadly, there is no episode next week, but there will be one the week after next on June 6th, so do keep that in mind. I'm very excited to see where everything takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.